Welcome back, hunters. I finally got around to finishing up my next how-to tutorial, and this one is on the bow. Bow is a very exciting weapon to use in Rise, a neat ranged weapon with a variety of different styles of damage, making it a super interesting weapon to try different things with. It does specialize in element damage compared to raw damage, so ideally you want to make multiple bows with different elements, although raw bows in Rise isn't the worst since element damage isn't so prominent in Rise compared to previous games, but overall element bows are still king. We'll go over some of the basic moves, the wirebugs, some skills and tips for the bow, and we'll end off with the main combos you should be using. Final note before we get started, guys, I did burn out on the game, which is why this video is so late, and as a content creator that was a valuable lesson for me. So if you'd like to support, please like and subscribe this video as I work on others. Alright, let's grab a wirebug and head on out. So before we get to the basic moves, let's talk about some of the things you need to prep before a hunt. Make sure the bow that you're using has the correct element when you're fighting a specific monster. Every monster has a different element weakness, so you gotta make sure that that bow is the right element that matches against the monster. Attack power isn't as important for the bow as mentioned compared to the element. In addition, you also want to check up your rampage skill. Now this skill in Rise is kind of like an augmentation from World that boosts your damage. This skill, what you want for here is to primarily boost your element damage for the weapon or the bow of your choice, especially as a beginner. Once you get a better understanding of the bow and you're able to be more precise, you can swap this for an element exploit perk, which if possible on the bow, not all bows have them, but if it does, it gives you an extra 30% boost on element hit zones that are higher than 25. So again, very clearly here, it's required for specific bows, for specific monsters, and you need to have precise skill. You need to be able to target the highest hit zones all throughout a hunt. And if you guys don't know where that is, you can check the hunter notes actually, and it'll show you exactly which body parts have the highest element hit zones. The higher the number, the more susceptible the monster is to that element. Affinity for bow isn't as important since bow is a skill heavy weapon, meaning you have to prioritize element and stamina skills first. Additionally, element is also your main focus for the weapon, so affinity for raw damage isn't as important. Stamina management is also very important with the bow, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, so if you want to jump straight to that, check the timestamps below. Last thing before the basic moves, let's talk about the coatings. Coatings are bow's way of adding status or extra damage depending on the situations to your arrows. Coatings can be examined on any bow in the equipment info. Close range coatings are by far the easiest and the one that everyone should really be using. Every bow comes with an unlimited amount of close range coatings. Now what this coating does is that it boosts your damage within a certain range of the monster, which if you didn't infer by the name, close means you have to be close to the monster. On screen, when you are within range of the monster with your coating on, your reticle will actually change from a yellow to orange. And as you can see here, it's a pretty wide range that this coating applies, so by default you really should be using this coating if you aren't using any of the other coatings just so you can get that extra damage. Now some weapons will come with a close range plus perk, and it's a slightly bigger boost to damage, but it's nothing to write home about. Literally makes almost no difference. It's like, I think Famedo said it was like 0.2%, so nothing game breaking at all. If your bow doesn't have it, don't even worry about it. Other than that, there are other coatings that you can use in battle. Power coatings are by far the best for higher damage. These should be used when you get a knock or create a big opening where you can guarantee to land a few shots. The reason for this is that the amount that you have in battle is limited, so you have to use them wisely. You can bring some crafting materials so you can quick craft an extra 20 power coatings or other coatings, but again, besides close range, everything is limited, so you have to use them wisely. Exhaust coatings are also super helpful since they grant an extra 10 plus attack on top of exhausting a monster. Every other coating depends on the monster you fight and if the status is effective against the monster, which you can check in your hunter notes. My suggestion here is to make a new loadout for each bow that you use. I will make a loadout with all the coatings that you need that can be used with that specific bow, and then all the materials that you need to craft the extra coatings. After coatings, you'll want to check your arrow types, which are dependent on the charge level. Now based on this, you'll want to create a build and add the appropriate skills to boost the damage of the level 3 to 4 arrow types. I would recommend using only bows that have the same level 3 and 4 charge types, since those are your highest dealing damage charge levels, and ideally you want to build for one type. I'll discuss a little bit more about this in the recommended skill sections of the video, so we'll get to that after the basic attacks. Once you have set these up, we can now learn the moves of bow. So bow damage is spread across 2 different attacks like every other weapon, but on top of that you also have charge levels that vary it up a bit. So when you're in battle, you can press X, will apply the highlighted coding seen at the bottom right. You can change the coding by holding L and pressing X or B to scroll up or down. Now holding ZL will bring up your aimer, and from here you can move the left stick to move around and use the right stick to aim at the monster part that you need to attack. Tapping ZR will fire a single charge shot, and if you shoot consecutively, every shot after charges your bow by 1 to a maximum of 4 before it resets. The indicator of your level is the color of your bow itself. No color is level 1, red is level 2, orange is level 3, and yellow is level 4. Now by default, you will have a bow that will only go up to level 3. You will need a special armor skill known as the Bow Charge Plus to unlock level 4. Currently in Rise, this armor is only obtainable from the Mighty Bow Feather Helmet, which you can get after completing Arena Challenges 3, 4, and 5 and collecting enough Ace coins, Hunter King coins, Rajang, and Barioth coins. Now, a little bit more on the charging. You can also have the option to charge your bow straight to max level by holding ZR. However, this isn't super helpful, except maybe the fact that maybe you have to readjust or like slightly change your aim angle. You can walk around while holding your charged arrows and then shoot your high damage arrows right away. Keep in mind though, as you hold this charge, your stamina does drain. So again, overall, it's not really worth if you're using this for too long. Usually it is more preferred to just shoot single arrows or dodge to charge your bow, since you get the damage in anyway while also charging your bow at the same time. So you can see literally here I can charge my bow and I can get like 4 to 5 hits off, but in the same time I could get almost 8 to 9 hits off by just charging my bow by single hits. Just to show the inefficiency, 2 full charges on the left side gets you 8 hits, 600 damage, while on the right side gets you 22 hits and over 1200 damage. So at most you only use this when you need to reposition like a couple steps. Speaking of dodging now, there is another way to charge your bow by dodging. While aiming, pushing the left stick in a certain direction and pressing B will perform a special dodge while still aiming. This is known as the charging sidestep, which is a default skill which will add 1 charge to your bow while evading a large distance in the direction of your choice. It's a very handy skill. If you're at max charge and you still dodge, you will maintain your max charge, and you can start a new combo, which we'll talk about in the combo section. The downside is that it does use quite a bit of stamina, so you gotta be careful and make sure you're not spamming this dodge attack. If you have to dodge more than once to reposition, you might as well walk and reposition yourself. And so with this, you kind of start to see the little basic notion of bow and Monster Hunter, that you dodge, attack, attack, dodge, maintain your charge while dodging to maintain that high constant damage. So charged attacks are going to be your go-to for regular damage. So let's talk about a few more basic attacks. By default, you also have a power shot and a subsequent power volley shot, which can be executed by pressing A following any ZR charged arrow shot. Just like regular shots, the power shots and the power volley both increase your charge level by 1. The difference here between just regular shots and the power shot is that if you're at max level by your charge shots, the power shot and the subsequent power volley shot will maintain that high level until you finish both these attacks. So it's kind of carrying that charge over instead of like the charge shots, which won't let you carry over and will reset back to 1. For those of you coming from World, the power shot used to be limited to spread ammo. But in Rise, the ammo type is now dependent on your charge level, so power shots are not just spread, they differ based on the bow that you have. And most likely will be corresponding to the level 3 or 4 charged arrow types. So it's highly important that the arrow types, these arrow types particularly, should correspond with what you need for the specific monster that you're hunting. A couple more things to clear up here. Bow also has a melee which can be performed by simply pressing A. However, this cannot be done while your bow is charged, so if you have any charge on the bow, pressing A will actually perform a power shot instead. Arc shots are the next basic move. These are boosts that can be applied to teammates or yourself mid-combat. Holding ZL plus ZR plus A will initiate the arc shot reticle, and you can then move your stick around to aim or target the monster or teammates. This is a nice support feature on the bow which can help boost teammate stats including affinity, recovery rate, or brace. Each bow in the game comes with a predetermined skill, so one of these three, unless you're using the rampage bow, then you can actually switch them out and pick the one that you want to use. Each one has their own specific use, although in my opinion, Brace is kind of a waste of time because Brace is now a level 1 jewel in Rise, which hunters should all be running. I would recommend Affinity if you want to just help out your teammates with quicker battles, or Recovery Rate if you all just want to be a little bit more dangerous, or if you're playing with new hunters that are still learning the game. Finally, we get to one of the last ones here. Bow retains the all-famous useless Dragon Piercer. While aiming or not, tapping X plus A together will begin this animation. Dragon Piercer is a charged bow shot that pierces through the monster, hitting multiple hit zones. It has a decently high motion value, meaning it will deal quite a bit of damage if it hits the right hit zones. However, in my opinion, as you can see here, the animation takes way too long, and it isn't worth unless you're attacking the monster in multiple good hit zones. And additionally to that, you also have to angle the shot perfectly, and you gotta hope that the monster doesn't move, and it's a lot to take in. It's not even really a good wake up attack since the first damage point is the only one that gets the bonus. After that, everything else is just normal damage, and again, you have to make sure it's lined up correctly, but the monster is also gonna move when it wakes up, so you're probably gonna miss some damage. I still think it's a really fun way to wake up monsters though. It's fun to just like shoot an arrow through them. It might not be the most efficient, but it's really fun, so I still use it for that purpose. But other than that, using the Dragon Piercer mid-combat just is a very heavy animation lock. It's too high risk and it doesn't return enough damage. And that's about it for the basic moves, so let's switch over and talk about the switch skills and the Wirebug skills before putting them together. So there are 2 regular switch skills and then 1 Wirebug. The regular ones begin with the exchange of power shots for absolute power shots. The actions of these 2 are essentially the same thing. They have the exact same animation, but the main difference is that the absolute power shots take up more stamina in exchange for a minor addition of KO damage to stun or flinch monsters. In my opinion, these are kind of okay to use. They're not the best to begin with since they do use more stamina, and as stamina is really important for bow users, I'd recommend against using these, especially if you're a beginner. You at most can get 2 KOs on a monster, but even that's pretty rare. I don't think I ever get 2 on Elder Dragons, unless I have teammates who can also add some KO damage. But a chance to stun or at least stagger the monster is quite fun, so if you're looking for a better way to manage your stamina, absolute power shots can be a way to go. The second switch skill replaces your dodge skill. This is a new skill that is entirely new to bow, and it introduces bow with an ability to counter attacks. The dodge bolt skill is a timed counter that if you execute at the exact moment you are being hit, you will gain some invincibility frames and deal damage to the monster in return. This is a really cool move. I love this move. I use it all the time now. A nice counter ability that also looks aesthetically pleasing, and if you successfully perform that counter, your bow is charged by 2. So attacks following that counter will deal high damage immediately. It's a very high risk skill, but I love using it because I just love countering monsters. It's absolutely satisfying to me. The main difference here to note is that your distance that you move with dodge bolt. This skill is not an evasion skill like the regular charge sidestep, and thus it compensates by using less stamina than the charge sidestep. Your travel distance is extremely small. At most, you'll probably not even be able to dodge a monster's attack with this. Thus, I would recommend you need to have at least 1 evade extender jewel, if not 2. So just a little example here, evade extender 1 on the right side. I have no trouble with this. This is enough space for me to usually dodge most monsters, but again, if you're having a little bit of trouble, put on the evade extender 2 and you should be totally fine. Now, I mentioned before that your counter does give you a charge. However, if you don't get that counter, if you miss, but your bow has charge, it will maintain the same level of charge, so you don't lose any charge by simply dashing. But again, it's not an evasion skill. This is really just to maintain your charge. So a big note here, if you're using this skill, you must have good awareness of the monster, and you have to know which skills you can counter and which you can't, because this skill only counters the first hit of a monster. So if you attempt to counter a multi-hit attack or an attack with a lingering hitbox, you're gonna fall flat on your butt. I have a whole comparison of these two skills, guys, and if you want to see where and when you should use each one, check out my comparison video in the description below or the recommended tile at the end of this video. Alright, for those new, let's talk about the wire skill now. The Wirebug is a skill that is unique to each weapon that is meant to either do some great damage or have some sort of amazing defensive or support skill. One is changeable while the other isn't. For bow, the constant Wirebug is the Herculean draw, which activates by pressing R plus A together. It's a skill that boosts your damage by 8 to 9% for about 30 seconds. Now this skill does take up 2 Wirebugs at a time, so it's not ideal to spam, but the extra passive damage is worth it in situations where you can't be aggressive or use your aggressive Wirebug skills, which I'll mention next. So for me, I find myself using this while the monster is moving around a lot. I'll get the extra damage in while my Wirebugs are recharging, and then finally when the monster slows down, gets knocked or gets stunned, I utilize the large damage combo and add my more aggressive Wirebugs to deal extra damage. This skill, however, does work better with the third Wirebug skill as opposed to the second. Now why is that? It's because this skill is the first of the changeable skills and it's actually a defensive skill. The focus shot is an extended evasion skill that'll back you away from the monster at a safe distance while boosting your stamina recovery rate. You can execute this skill at any point during a hunt as long as you have one Wirebug available by pressing R plus X. Now bow already has a great dodge skill, so you might be asking why is this even necessary. I feel the focus shot is a very beginner friendly skill. It'll help new hunters that are either learning the monster or learning bow to be able to recover stamina really quickly. New hunters will usually find that you might be doing some unnecessary dodging or moving around too much and using stamina, so you can use the focus shot to back off and get your stamina back real quick. You can focus shot in any direction that you like except for going forward, and the boosted stamina recovery is only active as long as you don't move. So even for late game hunters, this Wirebug skill could pair well with more risky gameplay if you want to try and get in as much DPS as possible and then quickly recover and then jump right back in again. In my opinion, the focus shot actually complements more the dodge bolt switch skill, since the dodge bolt removes your dodge dash ability, so it replaces that and you can kind of balance your hunter by giving you a skill that you can dodge if and when you need it. Other than that though, I honestly don't find myself using this skill too often. Once you have a good handle on stamina management and you understand monster patterns, this skill kind of becomes quite obsolete. Moving on here, the final Wirebug skill is quite worth though, and it replaces the focus shot by introducing an aerial attack which actually carries your hunter into the air pretty high up and enables you to unleash a barrage of arrows on the monster. So again, since it replaced the last skill, pressing R plus X will execute this aerial attack and it'll launch you into the air and launch a single attack. Following that attack, you can then press Z, R, or A twice to launch 2 more shots. Now these shots behave like power shots, so if you have the absolute power shot switch skill equipped, you will have a chance again to stun the monster and add KO damage. Another thing to note is that you should be aware that when you use this skill, the first shot is going to shoot automatically. So you need to be prepared and hold ZL and aim right away as you get into the air so that that first shot goes to the target part of choice. Following those two, you can take your time a little bit with the next 2 shots and launch them at any time before you hit the ground. Another thing to note about this aerial attack is that the bow charge on your level also increases per shot. But if you're at max charge already, you maintain the highest level of damage until the Wirebug attack is complete. So that means all 3 shots will be doing extra max damage attack. So ideally, you want to be ending off your combos with this skill to get those couple of extra max charge high damage shots in. This skill does use quite a bit of stamina though, so again you'll have to manage your stamina and your timing of when you use this. It's not ideal to use after every combo, although it does feel pretty cool. I will admit it feels pretty cool. But you should definitely use this when you have big openings or if one of your power shots gets a stun or a stagger or something like that. Even if the monster is attacking a teammate, that's a good opening for you to be able to use your aerial damage and just get those 3 quick shots right in and get some extra damage. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the basic moves. So let's move on to a couple extra tedious tools and things that you need to know about before we talk about the combos. I mentioned before that stamina for the bow is extremely important. dodging attacks and using attacks both consume large amounts of stamina, as opposed to all the other weapons in the game which don't take up as much stamina to attack, and honestly some even return stamina when you do normal attacks. For the bow, pretty much every action uses stamina. In World, we had an attack known as the Quick Shot, which actually had some positive stamina return to damage monsters, but in Rise there is no such move, aside from the charge level 1 shot which uses stamina but not as much as your basic recovery rate. Thus, like in other games, stamina improvement is key for bow builds such as using dash juice during hunts and skills like Constitution and Stamina Surge. Every hunt I would recommend using dash juice, which lasts 3 minutes, basically reducing the amount of base stamina used for activities such as dashing, attacking, rolling, etc. The goal of using stamina reducing skills is that then you can fit more actions into a combo in a set period of time before needing to back off and recharge. Or worse, you run out of stamina mid-combo and then you're in a very bad spot to get hit. The Constitution skill adds on to this and reduces stamina for the basic moves. However, since it's a skill, it's constantly applied during the hunt, while Dash Juice is only a temporary buff on top of this. Stamina Surge is another skill that I would recommend since it boosts your recovery rate, so in your downtime, you can get a quick boost to stamina, enabling you to jump back into the hunt much quicker, keeping your hunts more efficient. A final boost to your skills that I would recommend is from the Dongo menu meals. When you eat up for these, be sure to prep 2 Dongo trios for bow, including the first one, Dongo Marksman, Fighter, and Booster. The second one, you should replace a Booster with Glutton. So Marksman and Booster both increase your damage temporarily, while Fighter and Glutton both reduce the stamina depletion for basic actions for a temporary set amount of time. Fighter reduces stamina for various actions including attacks and evading, but this one lasts significantly longer throughout a hunt. Glutton significantly reduces stamina for all actions, however it only lasts for 2 minutes, whenever from the point of which you start the hunt or when you eat. So it's not really useful at the start of a hunt because you have to actually track down the monster and find them and then get started. This second set is actually more ideal if you cart, and then you have the option to eat up. I would eat up for Glutton, and then you can jump right back into the hunt with some stamina boost. Now, for a full breakdown on the numbers, I'm not the math guy, nor do I data mine guys, so if you want a full numbers, I'm going to have a recommended video by Titus in the description below. He's the guy that I go to for bow numbers. His overall recommendation was to have Constitution 3 to 4, plus Dongo Fighters, plus drink Dash Juice every hunt. And if you're using Palicos, you should also make sure that your Palico is an assist type that has the song Go Fight Win to add even more stamina reduction. As a casual bow player, my setup is that I drop one of the cons and I add Stamina Surge, plus the meals, plus Dash Juice. Fitting more anymore in my opinion is a little bit tough and will require you to drop some attack power, but overall it might be worth it if it helps keep your bow damage uptime, but for me as a casual bow player, I think cons 2 and 1 Stamina Surge is more than enough. Now the last thing we have to touch on here is the shot types. These are similar to the previous games, however they have been implemented differently. You have 3 main types of arrows in this game. Rapid, which are basically focused shots on one spot. They don't pierce through a monster and they are great for targeting an exact hit zone that you want to hit. Spread Ammo has a more wider horizontal range and can hit multiple hit zones. These are good for monsters with wide hitboxes or they're quick moving targets which you may not be able to target the exact spot you want, but instead you want an area so that you can maximize the damage. Finally, Pierce Ammo are arrows that, well, as they sound, pierce through the monster in a linear fashion from the point of launch of your bow. All 3 of these have their pros and cons for each monster, so you need to assess which monsters are good for which arrow types. Large monsters with multiple good hit zones, would be good to use Pierce Ammo so that you can hit as many hit zones as possible. Monsters like Camellias who have very specific hit zones against specific elements would be better to use rapid shots. And then monsters that are really quick moving like maybe Toby, you might want to use some spread armor so that you can hit multiple hit zones while they're quickly moving around. In Rise, shot type arrows max out at level 5 and only very specific bows have these. Level 5 is worth it, but if you are picking a bow with a better element and dropping to level 4, that's not bad at all either. Obviously, you won't have these when you're just starting out, but something to keep in mind as you level up. The end game for Rise, most of the bows that you really want are the Rampage bows, which you can then customize the shot types that you want, raising their powers to level 5 and putting the exact element that you want on them as well. Now, as I mentioned previously, you can only build your armor sets for 1, maybe 2 at max. Generally, you want to just build for one of these types. So the armor skills or decorations that you'll be looking out for correspond to the arrow shots, namely spread jewel for spread bows, pierce jewels for pierce bows, and force shot for rapid bows. So yeah, the shot types will definitely depend on your skill as a hunter, your playstyle, and the monster you are fighting. So now that we have a basic understanding of all the tactic and the skills, let's put it all together. So in my opinion, bow actually isn't really multiple combos, but more like one extended combo where you keep making decisions along the way. So the most basic combo that you just start off with is just normal shots 3 or 4 times till you're at max charge and repeat. Depending if you have a mighty bow skill, this will be tapping ZR 3 or 4 times in a row until you hit max charge. Now keep in mind, if you continue using normal shots after hitting max charge, your bow will reset to level 1. So this is really ideal just when you don't have any opportunities right now, you just want to get a couple of quick damages in. Alternative to this, you can also use the charge sidestep to start off the combo by simply dashing to level 2 and then deal some quick damage between 2 to 4. A final alternative to this is that if the monster attacks you and you have dodge bolt, as long as it's a viable attack to counter, you can counter jumping straight to level 3 charge and then deal high damage against the monster. Although it is worth noting that dodge bolt and then following an attack at the exact hit zone is quite tricky and takes a lot of muscle memory practice, so don't get discouraged if you can't do it right away, but my recommendation here is that if you dodge bolt successfully, dodge bolt one more time to maintain your charge to set yourself up and give you a little bit of space to then attack the right monster part. Now, if you create a small opening such as dodging the monster's attack or the monster is attacking a teammate, you can add some skills to your first ramp up combo. After the final regular shot that brings your bow to max charge, press A to launch your power shot. Now this shot will be at max charge arrows, so your damage will be high, and if you have the absolute power shot, again remember, you might have a chance to stun. This then brings you to a crossroad where you need to assess the current situation and make a decision. If you have more chances to attack the monster and you have a decent amount of stamina, you can dodge to maintain your charge, and then you can fire another charge shot at max followed by another power shot. This is what we call dash dancing, and it's one of if not the most common damage combos. It's very similar to the Monster Hunter World Bow. With the right amount of stamina, you can easily go for 4 to 5 dashes before needing to rest, so ideally you want to aim for 3 to 4 so that you have some reserve stamina. The ideal part of this combo is that you're including the dodge into the combo itself. So you can dodge a monster's attack, do some high damage with your charge shots, and then dodge again, maintain your high level charge, and do some extra damage while dodging the monster yet again. Now, as mentioned previously, in Rise you also have a power volley shot that comes after the power shot. I would recommend against using this until the end of your dash dance combo. As we mentioned, it uses up too much stamina and it has a longer animation time, putting you more at risk. So usually what you want to do is you want to rotate between charge shot, power shot, dash, charge shot, power shot, dash, charge shot, power shot, and then maybe end with a power volley. Or you can add in a Wirebug. So let's talk about that. If you have a big opening, you can add that power volley after 1 to 2 dashes, and then throw in that aerial Wirebug skill. The aerial Wirebug skill again adds 3 more max charge level shots, which is huge damage, especially when a monster is knocked. Even if a monster isn't knocked, honestly, I would throw that aerial in whenever you see a chance in battle. So for example, if you evaded a monster or countered a big attack and you know the monster has a 2 to 3 second recovery rate, you can immediately do your aerial Wirebug and deal some high damage. Now this skill is ideal so that it fits in some extra damage, but on top of that, it takes you really high into the air. So if you position yourself well, you can actually stay clear of monster attacks or even dodge some monster attacks while outputting damage as long as they have a relatively small hitbox. If you are above the monster though and you finish an aerial attack, there is another option that you can add if it's safe and clear, and that's up to your judgment. After your aerial shots, you can press X to do a downward melee strike that'll bring you back to the ground and do some damage if the monster is right below you. It doesn't use any extra stamina, but it does add some nice damage, and it's about the same animation time that it would take you to land and adjust. Now the downside of the aerial attack is that your charge will be lost after the attack finishes, so this is definitely a skill that you want to use in a timely fashion at the end of combos or when a monster is about to get up or move or it enrages and it's changing patterns. Keep in mind, you will need stamina after as well to dodge or move, since you will be in an animation lock for a few seconds while your character drops back down and adjusts. So that's primarily the attack skills that you're going to use. I will mention a special case here about dash dancing. If your bow utilizes rapid shots, there is actually a way to shorten that burst charge shot animation right after a dodge by immediately clicking A right after ZR. Like literally immediately, I mean almost at the same time, but just making sure ZR is the first input that goes in. This only applies to bows with rapid arrows, and it totally breaks rapid bows, since by being able to shorten that animation, you can actually slip in 1 or 2 more dash dances quickly in smaller windows. Definitely something helpful, especially in those small windows when you don't have a lot of time. You know, you can quickly get some extra damage in and then walk around and move around again, or dodge a monster's attacks. Definitely very helpful. And it hasn't been patched yet, so I'm assuming it's pretty much a feature of the game at this point. And that's about it for the bow, my fellow hunters. I hope this was able to help you guys. I'm glad I finally got this video out. I've had this script honestly for almost a month and I've been waiting on it, but I learned a valuable lesson as a new content creator that burnout is real. And while I was having fun making tutorials and playing the game, putting 500 hours into Rise in less than 3 months was not a good idea. So I'll be sure to get some more videos out for you guys, just so you guys have some more tutorials if you haven't tried some other weapons. But other than that, I do hope that you guys enjoyed the video and share this out to your friends, you know, if they need some help or they want to learn bow as well. I do want to shout out as well here that I do make some FPS content over on my second YouTube channel. So if any of you are interested at all, you can head on over there from the link in the description and we'll see you there too. Other than that, my friends, stay safe, be happy, and keep hunting. Sky Sensei is out.